Hi, everybody. I'm David with Bolivar Live, and once again, we're here with Chandra. We've been talking about Cobra property. In fact, the show we did last week with her, we gave the history, why it was started, and some dates, and just a quick revamp, um, because this is really one of the big questions. If it was platted before 2003, you can get the insurance even if it's a Cobra zone. If it was platted after June 11th, 2003, then it falls into the you better check on your insurance and see what the cost is going to be. And so, Chandra, you and I were talking, it can be changed.
It absolutely can be changed. So
And
one
go ahead.
one of the things we were talking about in the last show was that there's this review period every 5 years. And so the Department of the Interior will publish, what their proposed maps are, kind of like FEMA does with the V zones and everything. Every 5 years, they publish this Cobra map, and they have a comment period. And that comment period is not really open fully to the public, but it is open to your local officials, your state officials, and your federal officials. So this is something that we can look at the proposed maps and say, we have a problem with the way the Cobra Zone is laid out right now in Bolivar. We'd like to see these changes. We'd like to see these areas not restricted. And so we can advocate for a change in the Cobra Zone before they even put those proposed maps out. And then when they have that comment period, we can definitely have our legislature legislators advocate for us to try to get those areas changed. So I think that that's really the only way that we're going to make a change to the Cobra Zone, because I mean, the Department of the Interior, I mean, they're not here. They're just looking at
They
it
don't.
from a Google map, basically, to
Yeah.
see these are the wetlands, or what we think are the wetlands. These are the areas that seem to be tidally influenced or not. So they just, lay those things out, and it's almost everything forward to the intercoastal. That's like the whole peninsula, basically. So,
Well,
um,
talking to one of the old timers here, they just went down property lines outside the city of Crystal Beach area. They just went down property lines. And, if they're looking at a Google map, which I don't know how good they were back
mhm,
then, but if they look at an aerial view, it all depends. Was it a high tide? Was it a low tide? Was it a dry
right.
year? Was it a wet year? And some of these Cobra zones are right next to beautiful developments, but
Correct.
it's a Cobra zone because at the time it wasn't subdivided or it wasn't around any other structures. And so I'm glad to see from your research we found that they do look at these every 5 years, and it sounds like
Yeah.
we need to get on the ball and get with Terry Wilson and Mays Middleton and some of the other coastal people and say, hey, if you want your area to grow, and flourish, because Cobra's not just on the coast, is it? It's
No, it's not just
surrounding
on the
the bay.
coast. It's not just on the coast. Really, so when you think of the way that the GLO manages that first 1,000 feet of the beach, so they only manage from south of 87. Okay, so they don't manage anything north of 87, but the Cobra Zone will go the whole width of the peninsula.
Right.
So it'll be a strip that goes the whole width. So there's really not a limit there by 87, because usually if I'm looking for a V zone, or any kind of GLO zone, I'm looking at forward of 87, and you get to Gilchrist, it gets real thin, and then it kind of flares back out again. Well, all those sections, I mean, it's the whole width. I mean, it's
Yeah.
big sections of Crystal Beach and Port Bolivar, it's smaller sections of Gilchrist, it's everywhere. So it's not really consistent. It looks like a bunch of big stripes, down the
But it
peninsula.
but it's not on the north side of the bay like in Chambers County. Oh, it is?
Oh yeah, it's it's
Okay.
it's be it's beyond just and so you can the link to the map that I'm going to send you. You can put in your address, and you can see, am I in a Cobra Zone, or am I not in a Cobra Zone?
Right.
And it will tell you that information. Now, what it won't tell you is when you were platted. So you can go to the appraisal district, put in your address, and it'll tell you what subdivision you're in, and in parentheses behind it, it will have a year. And that year will tell you what year that subdivision was
Was
platted.
platted.
So you can tell right away, okay, I'm in, lot 5, block whatever of whatever subdivision, and it'll tell you that subdivision was platted in whatever year. So you can
Okay.
kind of tell whether or not you're eligible for TWIA insurance right away. The big problem that we're seeing is in the newer subdivisions, and we have several that are being developed right now. Uh, they're in the Cobra zone, and we're concerned that, everybody that finances a house is required to carry insurance. You can't self-insure. So because if they're carrying a mortgage, they're going to have to get some kind of flood and some kind of wind insurance and a
Right.
homeowner's policy. And if they can't go to a regular agent or even TWIA to make that happen, like, who are they going to get insurance from? So I feel like that's going to be the biggest hurdle, because some of these insurance carriers, I mean, they're getting very hard. They're not wanting to write a lot of risk. And when you start talking about wind, that's strike one. You talk about Cobra, that's strike two. I mean, you're already having, these barriers to getting insurance. So we're really worried about, even though if they're going to let us develop these places, can we even build a house there? Can we, if we build a house there, can we get insurance? I mean, we don't
Well,
even know, because we can't find people that will consistently insure us. We can't say, oh, Lloyd's will always insure us, because
and it
Lloyd's
depends
has a
on the
cap.
time of year too.
Right. They
So,
have a yearly cap, and they say, hey, we've already written all our Cobra policies for the year. We're not writing anymore. And you're like, whoa, this is like
and that's
June.
what people
I'm
need
going
to
into hurricane
realize.
season and I don't have insurance. I mean, this is a problem. So that's the problem, is you start hitting these limits for these private carriers, and they say, oh, well, we've written all of our policies for the year. We're not going to write anymore. We're not taking any more of that kind of a risk. And and you're going, well, my house just finished. It's June. We're going into hurricane season. Now I can't get insurance. What do I do? Oh, and I can't get my mortgage because I can't get insurance. So
Well, and
it leaves people in a pickle. And the other thing
the,
is, these private carriers can decide at any time they're not going to renew you. A
right.
lot of the big carriers right now, just in the coastal, regular part of the coastal counties, and in the farther north part of the coastal counties, they're non-renewing a lot of people, and
I think
they're
they need
getting
to
more and more
pass
restrictive.
I think they need to pass a law. If you want to write, you can't pick and choose where you want to write insurance in Texas. If you want to write insurance in Texas, you have to write it for everyone.
That's
Not
right.
pick and choose
Yeah.
on who who you want to write for, because then you're segregating, you
Right.
know. And
It's a really big problem. It's something that should have been addressed a long time ago. It would really help TWIA depopulation also, because we don't have anybody to hand these policies off to with TWIA.
right,
There's nobody that's going to take them, unless we require that the major carriers, the State Farm, the Travelers, the Allstate, the USAA, and all these other major carriers, if we don't require that they write the coast, I mean, they need to lose the auto. They need to lose the homeowners. They need to lose every personal property policy that they want to write. They need to lose all of it, because if they don't write the coast, they shouldn't get any of it.
yeah, yeah. So, well, and you and I were talking earlier. I want to see if I can get Dan involved, because he's got an insight as to what's going on in the insurance part of it, better than I do, and probably a little bit better than you. But you stay in contact with them, because they can come and go, and when they open their books up at the first of the year, that's when you need to be there to get your policy, because they've got room to write policies. When you wait from towards the end of the year, or if we have a big storm in July, they may shut it off early because of some losses they had. And right now, a lot of the insurance companies, from my understandings, are replenishing, and so we may see some uh leeway coming next year, and then more the following year, if we don't have anything big. But just thank goodness we weren't Acapulco, uh,
Right.
here, get 165-mile-an-hour winds when it made
Yeah.
landfall, and it doubled, went from 80 to 165-mile-an-hour winds in 12 hours.
Yeah. That's
That's crazy.
that's why, I mean, one of the things that we do in May is we talk to everybody about preparedness, being prepared, because you just don't
You
know, David. You
you
just
can't
don't know.
prepare
You
for
can't, well,
165
no,
mile an hour winds.
no, not really. But that's the thing. I mean, you can't just take it for granted that
Right.
I have plenty of time to prepare for this. No, it can change overnight. And you know what's crazy? The storms that happen usually at the beginning of the season are the ones that just pop up, and
Yeah.
they're usually not as intense because they don't have that time to really grow, but they can get intense. And we've had a lot of early season storms that have caused damage, and it's usually not quite as extensive. But the later season storm, mid-season to late season storms are the ones that sit out there, get bigger and
And
bigger and
brew.
bigger, and they just plummet us.
Well, I
So,
can remember when Ike was coming into the Gulf, and at the time I was guiding fishing trips, and there was a kid that an intern that worked at the weather National Weather Service in
mhm.
Galveston County over there, that knew me. And what happened there? Something popped up.
Yeah, it was a big thumbs up. So they
Knew
liked what you're
me,
saying.
and I'd call him when fronts were coming down or rain. What happened?
My
Oh, your
my
computer
light
turned
my
off.
my light's on a
Oh,
timer.
and he couldn't understand, and Ike was one of those. When I left out, we moved boats out. I moved at the time. I had a house in Katy and an RV down here, and I moved to Beaumont. And the
Mhm.
next morning, a friend of ours that worked at Texas City Refinery, his wife called and said, "David, George said you need to leave, head east, and don't stop because it's coming into Galveston," because it was coming in down Rockport
Mhm.
Corpus, And so I got up, and I can remember I was at 85 mile an hour with a 36-foot fifth wheel fixing to go over the bridge in Lake
Right.
Charles,
Mhm.
and it was 7 a.m., I think, and my mom called from Austin and in a panic, and I said, "Mom, I'm doing 85 mile an hour. I'm fixing to hit the bridge. I'm trying to be doing 45 when I get to the top. I will call you when I get stopped." She said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Don't know."
As far as away as I could get.
And so, but we were back. I was back, went to Bow Bridge, and came back to the west side of the bay over at Kima, and that about 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later, and then was back on Bolivar. I want to say in January, and so, but yes, they blow up. So, well, thanks for joining us and giving everything a breakdown, especially with the dates when something was subdivided and when, the 2000 June 11th, 2003. And I'm going to try and get hold of Dan to see if we can do another show from the insurance aspect of it, with you involved, and maybe we can play that next week. So stick
That's
around
great.
and see the saga of Cobra Insurance isn't over yet, and we've got 5 years to get our
We got some work to
representatives
do.
and legislators all on board, and let's help a little bit. And real quick, you can do environmental studies now, with the wetlands and that. And I think my thought was, when I was looking at it, was, if a piece of property has wetlands on it, I agree 100%. Don't build on it, don't backfill it, leave it natural. But if it's not wetlands, give us a little break. Work with us here a
Right.
little bit, because you can't just draw lines down property lines and say it's Cobra if that's your
Right.
reasoning behind it. So, anyway, I'll let you get some more coffee. We're
Thank
going to
you.
head on out, and we'll be back hopefully next week with some more talk with Chandra, talking about Cobra, and maybe get one of the insurance agents involved. Until next time, I'm David with Bolivar Live. Y'all have a great day, great week. Come see us. God bless, and bye bye.